Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am a robot.
And my name is Matt Freeman, and I am an 8-minute CGI nude scene. And together we are any random episode of Love, Death, and Robots.
Basically all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This week, we are doing another one of our patron-produced episodes. Matt, another one of these. We're doing good with these. Every 2 weeks, we're nailing it. I'm so proud of us.
Yeah, knocking them down.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, folks that pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level on Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a topic for us to do a show on. This week, our patron Zachary S asked us to take a look at the Netflix animated anthology series Love, Death, plus robots. It's an and, but it's stylized as a plus. And I think that's important for some reason.
It sure is.
We will be talking about all 18 shorts in this series. They're short shorts. I think the longest one is like 16 minutes long, I think.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing on the show. It will be a full spoiler discussion about each and every one of these shorts. So if you have not seen Love, Death, and Robots yet, we recommend you go check that out, or at least check out some of those shorts before you swing on back and listen to us. You have been warned. And then after we do that, Matt, last week was Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con, which means there's a whole bunch of nerd news out there, a whole bunch of film news. We got a bunch of new trailers, and then we got a big reveal of what Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to look like. So we're going to spend some time talking about that news, break it down a little bit, and then tell everyone what we think, because they care, right? Right?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. That's the show. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's jump right into it. So let's talk about Love, Death, and Robots.
Brace for impact!
Heart rate spiking!
So I think before we get into this, I think we need to kind of set the stage here a little bit, because like this was a project, a long gestating project by David Fincher, director we both quite enjoy, and Tim Miller, who did the Deadpool movies. I don't know if you knew that. I think Tim Miller is the primary creative, but David Fincher was one of his producers, so he's a big name. He gets noted.
So are they the producers, or did they, were they in charge of any of these particular episodes? Do we know that information?
They were both producers. Jennifer Miller, Tim Miller's wife, and a guy named Joshua Donnan were also producers. So the four of them produced it together. I think Tim Miller directed one of these, and it's the live action one with Topher Grace.
You're correct.
And Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
And David Fincher didn't direct any of them, but it is
Correct.
Interesting to see how it does seem like his fingerprints are on the show,
Yeah, well, I think if you look, the long history of the show is one of Fincher and Miller trying for a very long time to do a remake of the 1981 animated film Heavy Metal. And I think the DNA of that is all over this thing, too. And it eventually moved away from being heavy metal and into what its current form. But it's basically, I think the kernel of that is here. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about, and a lot of maybe what doesn't work or feels a little dated about this thing, is a result of that strong connection to heavy metal. I guess, should we explain what heavy metal is? Do you know what heavy metal is?
I don't at all. So, yeah, we probably should.
I don't know how I do, because I think I do, because it had boobs in it, and I was a 13-year-old, and it came on HBO, and I was like, whoa, animated boobs on HBO.
Makes sense.
Cool. So Heavy Metal was a 1981 film based off of a magazine of the same name, a magazine called Heavy Metal, which is like a bunch of different stories and drawings and comics, adult-oriented things. So we're talking heavy amount of gore, heavy amount of violence, heavy amount of sexuality. And it was so they made it into a movie that's just a bunch of animated shorts, similar to Love, Death, and Robots. They are hypersexualized. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of violence, just like the magazine itself. And it was a pretty like cult successful movie. They made a sequel called Heavy Metal 2000 in the year 2000. But that I don't think that was a list of shorts. I think it was just literally a sequel to the final short, which is the longest one, which is the one that I think if anyone has ever seen anything about this movie, they've seen animate a blonde woman very scantily clad riding on some like bird thing. That is the final short in the film and the one that's like most known for. So anyway, that's Heavy Metal. And I think as we're talking about this show, like I said, a lot of the choices made, a lot of what they were going for as far as the content of these shorts is very heavily inspired by what Heavy Metal was, which is this cult, gruesome punk, sexual, like, I don't want to say mature because I think maturity is debatable here. Like it's made for probably kids that my age that watched it, right?
Yeah,
I think it's made for teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be appealing to just indulging in the, what the Supreme Court would call the prurient interest, where you're just you're just enjoying being transgressive and just really turning into the skid on all of that kind of stuff. And I think obviously the anthology format is also what's being taken over from
correct
Heavy Metal. I just find it weird that I've never really heard of Heavy Metal. It seems like one of those things where I don't know how I got through the 90s without, accidentally learning what it was at least.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly never read the magazine, so I think it was literally like movie channels, flipping the movie channels all night, not doing anything. And then, ooh, cartoon on HBO. Ooh. There's also a really good one on that movie. It's like a World War II fighter pilot or bomber pilot, and his ship crashes, and it's like it's a zombie thing. And I just remember being really like, especially as a kid who didn't really like anime, and didn't watch a lot of non-child cartoons, to see like this gruesome, like gory zombie cartoon. I was like, oh yeah, badass.
Sure.
So, yeah. But anyway, that's Heavy Metal. I have no idea where you can see that these days. If you're at all interested in seeing that, I haven't watched it in years. But it is important for understanding Love, Death, and Robots. So let's get into this now. This is an updated, much more CG heavy version of that central concept. Matt, what were your overall thoughts on this anthology series? I think what we're going to do is kind of talk about our overall thoughts, and then we're going to dive into each episode and do a little bit of time on each of the 18 episodes.
So my overall thoughts on the whole anthology is that I loved it, and pretty much immediately was like, oh, this, like, I can already tell I'm gonna enjoy this. I really like the format. I like the idea of doing these really short episodes.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but contrast it to Black Mirror. Not because that's like the only anthology in the world, but that is the most kind of recent one that I've seen. And honestly, I can't get into Black Mirror because I'm like, I don't have the mental energy to be just kicked in the face for an hour. But I probably do have the mental energy. Like if one of these episodes is going to be like harrowing in some way, which some of them kind of are,
sure,
I can handle that for 10 minutes and then it's over and that's it. Like that's just more palatable to me, and I get like everything has its time and place, but I found it very fun and just enjoyable to watch. I think I watched all these in like 2 sittings.
Yeah, I mean, they go by so fast. You don't even realize how many into them you are. I watched this when it came out, which was just earlier this year. I think it came out in March. I watched these all, and then I came back and revisited them for the show. And I agree with you. I think there are, in any kind of anthology series, I think you're going to get some that are really good, some that are and some that are kind of stinkers. But overall, yeah, I mean, I think this is a fascinating format. I want to use this to kind of talk to you about the concept of short form storytelling, like just like short fiction, either in book form or in film form like this, and like how that changes how people approach it. Because I think there's an inherent patience that people, myself included, give short form storytelling that we don't give like a longer movie or a novel.
Yeah.
Just because of the time investment, right? Like if this episode stinks, and I don't like this episode, but it's 9 minutes long, like I didn't lose anything, and it doesn't sour me that much. It's just like, that one was kind of there.
Yeah,
and you just move on.
The first place my mind goes to is honestly so-called writers, where like the fact that the stories had to be really short meant that you're never going to really have a complete short story, or unless it's like a very special kind of very compact story. And so that, like you just said, it kind of requires a degree of patience with the story, where you're basically looking for what's good about it, or like what the author is trying to do with it, rather than expecting like, oh, it didn't really have very good characterization. And you can say that of any of these shorts in this anthology too, where like some of them don't really have a story, or they're just like a snip of the beginning of a story. Some of them really don't have a story, actually. And then some of them do have a story, but maybe like there's no dialogue, pretty much, or just kind of very, very like highly stylized storytelling in a lot of different directions, and you're just kind of letting it wash over you, and you're not being like, you're not judging it by reference to any other genre, because you're just kind of accepting it for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about endings a lot on the show and the importance of endings. And I think one thing short fiction does is kind of give you a get out of jail free card for your ending, because like it doesn't matter as much. Like it's okay if your story just kind of ends. And some of them do that. Some of them where they just like don't, there's nothing really resolved. It's just like a snapshot in time. And then you just say, you got this cool little window into this world, and then you just leave it behind. And it doesn't matter as much. Like thinking of that immediately makes me think of Stephen King's short fiction, because Stephen King is an author that like is kind of disparaged for how he ends his stories sometimes. And it's like even if there are moments when I don't like Stephen King's endings, I've never felt that way about a short fiction, just because what does it matter? Like, this is a 30-page story. Okay, it didn't end great, but it's just like, I feel like you can do the kind of like, and everybody dies ending in a short story way easier and way more forgivably than you can do, okay, now everybody dies in a 300-page novel or a 2-hour movie, you know?
Yeah, right. I think so. Yeah, I mean, it lends itself more to certain styles of like science fiction stories, which this is definitely very heavily science fiction in a way that I love, where like, like the ending can absolutely be everybody dies, and you're just kind of like, you take it on like a wistful level of like, what a nice little story. Whereas if you had invested a long time into that, you might be like, I don't know if they quite earned that ending.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Well, in this context, you're like, of course they didn't earn that ending. It doesn't matter. I don't expect them to.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that being said, like there are some episodes of this thing that end that way, the end in the everybody die ways. There's some that tell a complete story. And I think, we're more forgiving of short fiction that doesn't work as well. I think I personally am more shocked and surprised by short fiction that manages to, in this truncated amount of time, tell a complete story and do something with it. Like, and I don't want to take away from a lot of these stories that the thing that they're doing is literally just visceral, in that it's visceral violence or visceral sex or anything like this. But the ones that actually like say something in a 12-minute story are really impressive to me.
Yeah. And I think I probably liked every episode. There are definitely some where I was just like, like specifically,
right.
I think probably my least favorite episode was the alternate histories, because it just wasn't really an episode.
It was a joke. It was just a 7-minute joke.
It was a 7-minute joke, and you're just kind of like, the most you get out of it is like a little bit of a chuckle at the absurdity. And that's fine. Like, I wasn't like angry. I was just like, yeah, well, this is definitely one where I'm not gonna remember this one. Whereas some of these, I was like thinking about them later the same day, thinking about them again the next day, still kind of thinking about them a few days later. Like, they pretty impactful storytelling for such a short window.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I kind of intentionally set myself up for as I went through the second watch. Before I sat down to start watching these episodes, I said to myself, okay, Scott, which ones do you remember from March? Which ones were so impactful that you remember the story before you even click play and go, oh yeah, this one. And we'll talk about those as we go through them, which ones those were. And yeah, I mean, it's unsurprising to find out that those are some of my absolute favorite episodes of this thing. But yeah, I mean, I think, we're going to have a lot to say about the sex and the nudity in this thing. And like the treatment of women overall is not great. A lot of the women in these stories are relegated to like side roles, or like they're the deceiving trickster character, but it's so funny because it's very 80s in that regard. Mm-hmm. Like this is like, and it's weird because like so many of these stories are like written by different people, compiled by different studios even. Like there's some that come from similar studios. Like I think Blur Studio is one of the animating studios that did a lot of these, but several of these come from totally different studios. So like you can't say that it's like the creators wanted to do this one thing, but also they compiled them. So I guess you could argue that, but there's just, let's talk about the sex. Let's talk about this because I am of two minds of it. I absolutely agree that there are times in these stories where like just the nudity and the sheer like almost pornographic nature of the sexual encounters is a little eye-rolly. But at the same time, I'm like, well, this is what it's trying to be, though. It's trying to be boundary pushing in every regard. Like it's boundary pushing in like you see a head get chopped in half and like each layer of the human body rips off one at a time, right? Like you see skin, bone, brain, like, and it's trying to be boundary pushing in how it depicts sexuality. So it's like, it feels weird for me to go like, why would they do that? That's stupid. And I was like, well, no, I mean, it's like they're trying to push things. They're trying to be over the top. They're trying to be explicit in every possible way.
Yeah. There were a couple where, and maybe you disagree and that'd be fine, but like there were a couple where I thought that the level of nudity, which like on its face seems gratuitous, actually worked with the story the way it was. Like I thought Sunny's Edge and Beyond the Aquila Rift were two where I was like, yep, that sure is a lot of nudity, but it works with the story they're telling, and it works with kind of the like sleazy noir tone that they're taking in both of these. And it didn't bother me. I was like, yeah, this is downright pornographic, but it works. It works in this story. Like it feels like it belongs in this story. Mm-hmm. And then there were others where I was like, well, I don't know. It comes down to personal taste eventually. Like some of them I was just like, okay, well, that there definitely didn't need to be nudity there, but they were, but it's stylistic, so I guess that's fine. And I don't know, should nudity have to justify itself?
Yeah, that's kind of the question you get to here is like, we've kind of, nobody bats an eye about like, I mean, some people do probably about the over the top gore. It's just like, we're just cool with that. And then we get to nudity and sex and we're like, whoa, I don't know about that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting. And the answer, I think, is no, it doesn't have to justify it. If you're telling a story and your story calls for there to be a sex scene between characters and you want to film that as explicit and show as much as you want to show, go for it. I mean, I think there are, like you said, there are ways in this that it works and ways that it absolutely doesn't. One of the ones that I'm really interested in discussing with you when we start going through is good hunting, because that's one in which there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of nudity, and it's all understandable in world, but it's also just like I don't know how to feel about that story. That's the one with the magical like, cat demon thing.
That was one where I was basically saying like, I guess it it's just kind of upsetting. And that's why I said it kind of comes down to personal taste, is I'm like, the story upset me, and then it's like, well, the story is probably trying to upset you. It's about the exploitation and basically enslavement and abuse of these women. So the fact that it used nudity in a way where it was graphically depicting these things that are terrible, and then that upset you, that was their goal. So I'm like, okay, well, fair play, I guess.
Yeah, but is it so? I think this is where it's going to become difficult, because like I felt upset too, but also like, are you supposed to be titillated a little bit? And like the back and forth of that, you know, like this are they trying to show nudity in a way in which it's disturbing and uncomfortable, or are they just supposed to be like, like the 13-year-old Scott that found heavy metal? Like, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't both know. I think, and I think that's when you start blurring the line. And I don't think we're gonna solve this, right? Like, I think you're absolutely right that it is a matter of taste. There are people that watch this thing and are not at all interested in that kind of exploitative sex and violence and gore, and there are people that are totally fine with it, that like seeing things that explore these things and push these envelopes in ways, and in ways it works better or worse for them depending on how it's used. I've always liked push the envelope type stuff. I've always just kind of liked, like, I'm really into horror, so like I'm really into trying new things and pushing the envelope. But I think we have a duty to like talk about the ways in which it can be problematic.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like all I can really do is give my reactions as a person, and then maybe talk about kind of the context of things. Like, I mean, probably the story that, and I think we can just like wrap up with the specific topic of nudity, and then start going through the episode specifically. But The Witness was the episode where I was just like, I don't understand what's happening in this story, because you have made it so. I don't know why you put this prolonged like sexual dance in the middle of this story where this woman is running for her life. Mm-hmm. And it just makes no sense. Like, it kind of broke the story. And I was like, well, that's the one example out of all of these where I was like, yeah, it's very stylistic, and like it's like really kind of cool visuals actually, and like any given like frame of this is artistic in a way. But like, okay, she's running from somebody who's trying to kill her, and now she's doing a sexy dance.
Well, she thought she was safe. She got into the club. She's protected. She didn't know he followed her.
Is that?
She thought she was safe.
But why? But why did she go from I'm being chased by a murderer to I guess I'm going to do the sexy dance now in like 0.2 seconds? I guess is
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
sometimes you just got to do your job.
I guess.
No,
so.
I get what you're saying. I mean, that one has a lot of like her. She's the entire second half of that story is her running naked through the city.
Right.
You know? And I had that on my phone at work, and I forgot that, and I was like, "Oh, Jesus, gotta turn this off."
yeah. And what's funny is I'm not even saying that I dislike that story. That I was just like reflecting on it. I was like, that if any of these was one where I was like, I don't know why you did that with the nudity. That would be the one. But overall, I still was like, oh, what a cool little imaginative story, and I did love the visuals. Like, I love the style of it.
I think that's one thing before we move on to the individual ones we have to talk about. Like, overall, I think the animation in all of these is beautiful. There are moments where some of them are a little more plasticky, where they were going for almost photorealistic and it didn't quite get there, because like they're not going to spend a Pixar money or Lion King money on these things, right?
Yeah.
But overall, I thought the visuals were beautiful. The animation was really well done. They're different. Like, it's like every story like looks distinct. Every world looks different. A lot of fun framing and coloring. Just a lot of cool different stuff that I haven't seen before.
Absolutely. I remember when we were talking about the giant mech pseudo CGI but rotoscoped show made by Rooster Teeth that I forgot the name of.
Genlock.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
And how I was like, man, this is kind of cool that we're at this point in time where we can make these pretty good looking CGI shows where it's kind of in this fun area between being cartoony and but being like, yeah, it's CGI. And I was kind of blown away because I was like, oh, we're already at the point where we can make this whole show using like really quite good looking CGI. I was some of these where it's I mean, yeah, sometimes the faces can look a little plasticky, but honestly, it wasn't like Final Fantasy the Spirits Within level plasticky. It was just like, yeah, you can tell it's not a real person, but I can tell what emotion they're trying to convey, which is really the main thing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I love the visual style. I love the episodes that were fully CGI. I love the episodes that were not at all fully CGI. And we're going for like weird, stylized, cartoon visuals. And I thought it was cool to have both of those things in the same anthology, actually. Yeah,
I totally agree. It like classic animation, 3D looking animation, specifically not like there's some cell shading stuff going on here. There's all kinds of cool things.
Yeah.
I think even if I didn't like all of these individual stories, which I did, I think just the idea of this thing existing, I like, because I feel like there's a ton of filmmakers out there that just make shorts, whether they're animated shorts or live action shorts, what have you. There's tons of filmmakers out there that do shorts, but nobody watches short films. They're not available anywhere, right? Like you can't go to a movie theater and see shorts. The most watched shorts in the world are the ones that get nominated for Academy Awards, and that's it. So like a show existing that brings short film to people on any level, I wholeheartedly support. I think it's a great idea, and I think there should be more anthology series like this.
I agree. I adore this format, and just looking through the most of these were written by different writers. Many of them were directed by different directors. It's just a cool way of getting like a whole bunch of people opportunities to tell a small story and kind of show you what their thing is, right?
Yeah, and it's like a literary magazine.
Yeah,
but for your I was about to say for your eyeballs, but that's also a literary magazine for your television.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, so you want to move into the individual ones?
Let's do it.
Do we want to do our guessing game first? I thought it would be fun if Matt and I attempted to guess each other's favorite episode to see how well we know each other.
Let's do that. Although I think we also admitted that we each had trouble selecting a favorite episode.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some, I'll give you a handicap.
Okay. How are we gonna do that? So like I get multiple guesses?
I think if you pick any of my top three, I'll just say yeah, fine.
All right. Matt's favorite episode of season 1 of Love, Death, and Robots is Zima Blue.
Yeah, that's up there, definitely.
Wait, is it? Did I hit the nail on the head?
I mean, I didn't literally rank them. It's one of the 4 that I typed in as being my 4 favorites.
Okay, now that I've guessed, what are those 4? I'm very curious.
Sunny's Edge.
Okay.
Beyond the Aquila Rift. Lucky 13. And Zima Blue. And I didn't put like all of the thought in the world into this list. And it was interesting looking back on it. I was like, I picked 3 of the super, photorealistic CGI ones, and then I picked Zima Blue, which is one of the most stylized ones.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
The reason I guessed Zima Blue for you was because it's dealing with like an artificial intelligent robot like searching for itself and searching for meaning. And what it is, and like I think that's stuff that you're really interested in, like super high concept sci-fi involving like existence and consciousness and being is Matt.
Yeah, and now I'm finding out that it was written by John Scalzi, who wrote 3 Hugo nominated novels. So like, I mean, anyway, like it's a very cool concept, and it actually resolves in a way that's very like oh wait, that's the wrong one. I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
I was gonna say
I was looking at the wrong episode. That one was written by who?
Alistair Reynolds.
Oh, that's another super well-known science fiction author that I love.
Based off a story by Alistair Reynolds.
Yeah, I love Alistair Reynolds. What was I saying? Basically, this, and then I also love the stylized way that it was visualize. Like I thought it was just very like stunningly gorgeous to look at.
I think my favorite. Let's just talk about that one. I guess that's do you think that's a good place to start with our episode by episode breakdown to talk about your quote unquote favorite first?
Sure.
I really love this episode too. I think it would be on my list, which kind of helps you in your guessing, but not entirely. Maybe. I think the coloring is really great. I mean, like the blue tile is like so important to the story, and it's like I love how they created a tile that looks like just any other blue, but isn't any other kind of blue.
Yeah.
I think just like I'm a sucker for voiceover. Like I really am. I can't help it. And I thought that the voiceover in this was good and I enjoyed it. And then I think some of the imagery, like I think Zima stepping into like a river of lava and like just looking like and just searching for something, like he steps into this river of lava and it just like looks around as if he's like so desperate to find something that he's going in one of the harshest, like unsurvivable places in the world, and there's like you don't get to see any kind of expression or emotion on his face. It's just nothing. Just nothing.
Yeah, I mean the visual of his body like dissolving and falling apart as he turns back into the pool skimmer.
Yeah, it's really good.
I found just to be very like, I don't even know the right word for it. Just like it hit me. It hit me pretty good. And I love the way the people are drawn. It's just very unrealistic.
Sure.
You know.
It's like hyper stylized, almost non-human looking.
Yeah, but I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and like this is one of those things where it's a short that talks about artwork, right? And so they, in order to make it believable that he's this famous artist, they kind of have to create this super impressive art. And the ideas which they came up to create this like larger than life impressive artwork was great. Like the slowly increasing mural sizes. I think the concept of like painting a portion of the rings of a planet blue to get the blue square was just like really inventive and creative. I just really liked it.
Yeah.
And I like this is one of those ones that's 10 minutes long that I was really impressed with what it's saying, because you have this little tiny thing that's talking about existence and talking about the search we all go on to find meaning in our lives. And you have this thing that started off as one of the simplest no cares in the world machine that saw everything, knew everything, and made the choice to go back to that simple, carefree existence. And that's saying something about life.
I think that's one of the things that makes it so impactful, is that it leaves you with the question of like, is that a choice that you could make? Not that we have the option of going back to being pool skimmers, but like you're giving up all of the variety of life to go back to this one thing that you're, in a sense, programmed to be fixated on. And I'm like, as a human, I almost find that terrifying and repugnant, but he was never a human. And so should I feel the same way about his choice? And I definitely thought about that one for a long time after watching it.
But I do think it reflects on humanity too, because I'm not saying that his answer is the right way, but this idea that we have evolved into these incredibly intelligent, curious beings that discover and learn and create all these different things, and are we happier? Like what is happiness, right? Like does that are we happy? Are we fulfilled? Like is there something desirable in the simple existence of an unquestioning being that just like sees right in front of them and takes the simple pleasure in accomplishing the tasks for which they were created.
Yeah, sure. It's a metaphor for choosing simplicity, and
yeah. I think that's fascinating, and it's 10 minutes long.
Absolutely,
that's great. I love that one.
Me too.
Yeah. So you want to guess my favorite?
I feel like I'm not going to do a good job on this.
Okay.
I mean, I want to try.
Shit, go for it. Go.
I think that this is some good audio right now.
I can edit all these delays out, and then you'll look brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, I said that, but that doesn't mean you can just be quiet for 25 minutes.
Well,
just take a shot. It doesn't matter.
I think I'll bet that you really liked I'll bet that you liked Fish Night.
Interesting. I did, but I would not have picked that as one of my favorite.
Okay.
Why did you think I liked Fish Night? I'm almost more interested in that than I am whether or not you're right or wrong.
I picked it because it's got like a cool dynamic between two characters. It's got like a fun visual concept and a lot of like interesting visual storytelling. And I don't know, it just leaves me with a very interesting and unique feeling. And so I was like, I think that Scott likes all of those things.
I'm definitely like, especially my short fiction storytelling, like style is weighted way higher for me for sure.
Yeah.
You're convincing me to like it more. Let's just talk about Fish Night.
Sure.
I want to talk about this
Sure.
one. Yeah. So the basic concept of this one is two traveling salesmen are lost. The car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, so they're stuck there and they're just hanging out. And then in the middle of the night, the ghosts of the ocean that used to be there come to life, and the landscape turns into the ocean. And one of the two decides to go swimming in it, and is immediately murdered by a shark.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah. And the one who does it is like the more headstrong, but like doubtful of any kind of majesty in the world person, and then he's horribly killed.
I mean, I think visually this is wonderful. Like the glow effect on all the different ghost animals was really wonderful. I love how we see that glow effect extend to the salesman when he first jumps in, which is like a great visual way of saying like, yes, you are in danger from the shark. Like you have become part of that world specifically, and therefore all the good and bad of that world is part of you now. So like we know immediately as soon as we see the shark, we're like, oh
yeah.
That's really great visual storytelling. Yeah, and I mean, like thematically, it's the older gentleman, right, that says something to the effect of like, "Man, can you imagine just swimming around without a care in the world?" And looking at that as this kind of nostalgic like innocence and peace that comes with that life in the before time.
Yeah.
And then I think the illusion of that is shattered with the guy being completely destroyed by the shark.
Absolutely. I mean, it felt like a classic Twilight Zone type idea where, and it really is a complete short story, right? Because it starts out with two characters with kind of opposing viewpoints, and then by the end, one of them, their viewpoint has been flipped basically because he thought like, if only things were like they used to be, simpler, and then I think the framing device is important because they are traveling salesmen in the modern day in a world in which that profession is increasingly not desirable. And so it's kind of like the world has moved on beyond them, and the older one is looking back towards that simplicity with nostalgia, and it's the young one that's sucked up into it to his detriment. And so you do get a feeling that the older man has changed in somewhat from that experience. The story doesn't tell you that, but it certainly seems like it. Yeah. Although I still don't know how the hell he's going to get out of there. Right. I thought it. I mean, that's one of the ones where I'm completely fine with the ending just being like, then he was sad. The end. Right. It's funny. I'm as we're talking, I'm looking through these, and I'm like, there's the four that I said were my four favorite, and then like everything else, I'm like, well, there's something to like in all of these, so it makes it really hard for me to say like, I know what your favorite's going to be. So like, I thought, I mean, the four just all around best ones for my money were Sunny's Edge, Beyond the Aquila Rift, Lucky 13, and Zima Blue. And then I have like below those, Good Hunting, The Secret War, and Shapeshifters. And I'm wondering if your favorite is contained in that list, which is like half of them. Yes. Okay. Yes. And I go back and I would probably say Zima Blue if you hadn't also picked it. So like my thing was going to be, I will give it to you if you say Beyond the Aquila Rift. Okay. Because I like that one a lot. I like, again, visually it's like very beautiful. I like the horrifying concept of the story, but like horrifying and tragic in the same
in the same right. I just think that's conceptually really fascinating. I think one of the things that I wrestle with some of the like realistic looking animation ones, like I love the story of Lucky 13. I think that's a really fun story. I really like it. I like the idea. I think the animation just kind of looks like it's good. It's well done. I just think it kind of looks flat. Like it's not very colorful. And that hurts it in comparison to some of these ones that are like visually incredible. And I'm not saying that the animation isn't good. Like it's really good. Like Samira Wiley plays the main character and she's like recognizable. That's that actress from what's it? Orange is the New Black. I recognize her from that show, and I recognize her from the other roles she starred in. So like really great animation job. But it just like didn't pop as much for me.
Yeah. I think I agree. I mean, I thought it was a cool science fiction setting, but like it's all in this like dusty brown planet,
right?
Which doesn't help it a lot. I mean, it's still really cool, like combat and dogfights and a super cool concept. And that's another one that I would classify on the subset of these that where I kind of want to be like, oh, that's like a Twilight Zone concept. Like you've got a ship that's like it's science fiction, but the real conceit isn't it's science fiction. The real conceit is that this ship is like unlucky and then lucky, and you don't know quite how to feel about it.
And alive in some way.
Yeah, in some way. Yeah.
I have a question about that. So I like the conceptual idea of like her going from it's just a machine to her recognizing that it's more than that. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
I do feel like the cuts to the angles where we're seeing like through the ship camera where the ship is like looking at her, I kind of feel like that's almost too much. Like I kind of feel like I don't think that's necessary to get the idea that the ship is more than the ship. Like I think that's almost playing its hand too much to the point where like at the very end the ship decides I don't want to blow up yet. I want to say goodbye first, and I want to take out these guys with me before I go. I think it kind of makes that less of a impactful moment because, like, in filmatic language, when you cut to a point of view shot from a camera eye looking at the person, like that's immediately like, oh, it's alive, or it's more, right? Yeah. Like that, you immediately give that off, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I
completely agree. I wanted it to be a little bit more ambiguous. In fact, my preferred reading of that one is that we don't actually know that it was like, oh, it's got a sentient AI in it. But rather like, oh, it's just ineffably a ship with a soul.
Yeah, it's like developed a soul. Yeah, that's how I want to read it too. Yeah.
But like the story would have worked just as well if this was like World War II and everyone thought the pilot was just a weirdo, and then like and then at the last minute something happens that is almost unexplainable, but you could also explain it by just being like the fuse was delayed or something.
Right. Because I think the importance of the moment is not necessarily whether it is 100% true, but that she believes it is true.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, I still think you can read the story that way, but I definitely agree that the shots from the ship cameras push you in the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's the one moment, too, where the final one, when she looks into the eye of the ship, the camera, and says goodbye, or she says, I'm sorry, or something, and then she turns on the self-destruct, and, like, across the screen appears, like prevented or blocked or canceled or something. And that's almost like you know it's going to happen before it does. Like, it's like you see the ship make the choice to hold that. And I just like, you don't need that. You don't need that story. Like, leave it ambiguous, make it a surprise. Like, you know, I don't know. This is quibbling of the highest order because I really did enjoy the episode, but I think that's what kept it from being great.
I think that this is the kind of quibbling that comes from having really liked something and been like, oh man, I just wish it would be perfect if I could just make these small tweaks, you know.
I agree. Yeah. All right. So we've talked about 3 of them. Let's just kind of go from the top then and work our way down. Let's talk about Sunny's Edge. So this is one that you said was your favorite. This is the one that starts the series. I think normally in anthology things, they kind of try to start and finish with some of their more powerful ones, like get you in immediately and then send you off with something big. So this is, I think, the longest one. This one's 17 minutes long. What'd you think about Sunny's Edge?
I liked it a lot. This is one of my favorites. It kind of has the whole short story thing going for it, right? Like it introduces characters who you care about. It characterizes them, gives them a backstory, has an antagonist, has like a full story, has really cool visuals, like this fun, like grungy cyberpunk style to the whole thing that just was really my jam. And then like this cool bioengineered monster fight, and then a fun like sadistic twist at the end, which really was like, kill them, so
I mean, it was really cool. And I think this is one of the ones where like the specific like nudity and sex of this one did not bother me that much. I think it's important to her character that she's sexually assaulted, right? That's what basically caused her quote unquote death. I think the fight animation between the two beasts was pretty great.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. Like, it was a lot of fun. Like, it was very creative, kind of how it shifted and changed over time. And her the thing's tail, like splitting into four tails, was just, I think, inventive and cool. Like, it's one of those ones where I was just like, yeah, this is cool. Animation is very, very beautiful. I agree. It's darker, it's grungier, it's not quite as colorful as some of the other ones, which I like color, but I think it's used in a really good way.
And like I just love the, I guess cinematography. I never know what word to use when it's CGI and all of the camera movements are in a computer, but like the cutting back to her just sitting perfectly still while the fight is going on, and you assume at the time like, oh, she's a badass, she's focused, and then later you realize like, oh, that's just a shell, she's not even there, and it's kind of a cool twist.
And I mean, I think the inherent concept of your edge is given by the fact that you are truly risking everything is a satisfying concept to me,
absolutely.
At least. Cool. So that's Sunny's. I don't know if we have anything else to say about that one.
No, just
for being the
good.
Longest one, it feels like there's not too much there, but what is there is good.
Yeah, it works. It works really well. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Three Robots. What do you think about this one?
I thought it was cute. This was the first one I saw. I don't know why, but Netflix showed me these all out of order, so I saw Three Robots first. I thought it was cute and fun and made me smile, and it had some pretty good jokes, actually, like some moments that I laughed at. And it's not really a story. It's just kind of a like it's a gag. It's a haha, humans are all dead, and the robots think like the robots are a combination of baffled and just really wrong about what we were all about, and that's it.
I do think it's funny that their knowledge of humanity is like wildly inconsistent. Like, in some moments they know absolutely nothing about anything, and then some moments like they know exactly what their predecessor was and what it was used for. I think that's pretty funny. Like the little, what was the little bot used for again? I can't remember.
I don't remember either. I mean, it seemed like it was just like a game console, but I don't remember.
No, that was the larger one. The Xbot 4000 was the game console. It was the tiny one that was something else. Yeah, it's fun. Like, it's cute. The talking cat thing is fun. I guess their cats are gonna kill them all. I don't know what that ending's supposed to be, but I don't care. It's just like a joke. It's just like this is what I think what we meant by like, I'm not put off by a 12-minute joke. They're just like, that's cute.
Well, and like the triangular robot had a lot of just like really great, sick burns on humans. Where I was just like, that's hilarious. And like the description of eating, I thought was one of the best things ever.
Oh yeah, that was great.
It's just like, oh, this is such a funny, absurd joke.
Yeah, that reminds me of those alien cartoons. Like the aliens like describing just normal things we do in outlandish ways because externally it's absurd.
Right. Yeah. Why didn't they just mash it up and put it in an external acid tank?
It's great. I mean, when you think about it like that, why?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? All right, so that is Three Robots. Next up, we have The Witness. We've kind of already talked about this one a little bit, but let's go through this one again. This is the one where a woman witnesses a murder in the apartment across her, and then the man chases her down. and she ends up killing him by the end, and then it's like some sort of crazy loop thing.
Yeah. I thought this was like a really fun idea, and it's one of these ones where it's fine that it doesn't make sense generally. Like you can see in the beginning that he has murdered her, and then he looks out the window and it's her. Yeah. And then in the end, she's murdered him, and then she looks out the window and it's him, and it's like, okay, it's a loop. And we're not at no point did anyone pass through a glowing archway that said, time machine, or it's just like a kind of a surreal, like it reminds me of like, Villeneuve's movie Enemy or something like that, where it's just like, yeah, dude, we're not going to explain this. We're not going to explain it.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
In fact, this isn't a story where what's going on actually matters. It's more just like what a weird idea. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just experiencing it like visually and viscerally. And I think one of the strengths of this one is I think the animation is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It just the way these characters are drawn, the way they move, the world like both looks like cool and tactile and also like grungy and terrible at the same time. I know you don't like the like narratively the nude scene, but I think like just like objectively that's just like a beautifully like animated scene.
Yeah.
Like it does everything it's supposed to do, and it's really cool. I really liked it, and I agree with you that like there's no reason that this woman has to be running through the streets with the shirt that she threw on open, completely naked. Like there's absolutely no reason for that. It's gratuitous, but I don't know. There's something about the way it was drawn that just like I thought it was great.
Yeah, I kind of keep going back and forth, honestly, because I'm like, gratuitous is, and it's a word that I just used too, but like it's a word that implies that you need to justify it, and like I think the United States is the only country that, well, okay, not the only country, but like in contrast to Europe, for example, just this idea that like, but did you really fully earn that nudity? It's such like puritanical way of seeing it.
Sure,
which I definitely have programmed into my brain, and I'm just kind of trying to be aware of that fact.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just like, I think if we're trying to look like symbolically, it emphasizes her fragility, right? Like she's exposed.
Yeah,
she's exposed in every possible way. And this man's chasing her, and but like I don't know. I go back and forth too, because I think everything in a story should in some way have to earn its existence. But at the same time, like if this is the type of story you're going to tell, then go off, like do it.
Yeah, no, I mean you have a point. Like every story element should be there for a reason, and in this case, like you just said, the reason for the nudity is to have her be like maximally exposed, vulnerable, and helpless. Yeah.
All right, next up we have Suits, which is about farmers, I guess, on a distant planet who are protecting their farms from monsters with big mechs. What did you think about Suits?
It was what did I think about this one? I mean, it seems like it's not saying much to say that I enjoyed it. It definitely was one of the ones that tried to be a full short story. And it's fun how, your idea of what's going on keeps shifting throughout the story. It may be that I just watched too many episodes in a row by the time I saw this one, but I just didn't care a ton about the characters. But then again, maybe it's also just like, hey, it's really too short for you to form that much of an attachment, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it. It was kind of middle of the pack in terms of preferences for me.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I did not remember at all until it started playing, and then I enjoyed it. Like I think the fighting is cool. The animation, it looks kind of like a video game to me. Like the way the characters are animated, it looks a little bit cel shaded in a way that I could see this being a game. And yeah, it's kind of just very forgettable. In actually, you know what it looks like? It looks like the Walking Dead video game. That's what it looks like. The Telltale Walking Dead video game, like as a better animated version of that. Absolutely. I'm looking at screenshots right now and I'm like, whoa, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is, you're absolutely right. It's a complete little story. And with sacrifice and action and love and joking around and interesting characters that you don't really get enough time. Like the guy that sacrifices himself to die, I guess like you feel a little bit because you see his wife there to like deal with her husband's death, but we don't know this guy at all. So like we're pretty indifferent to him.
Yeah, right. I think probably my favorite part was actually when they zoom out and show that what's happening basically is that these are like shield bubbles on an alien planet, and that the humans are basically the invading colonists.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And yeah.
I do really like the mix of like the farmy like southern cowboy type with the futuristic like mech type thing. I mean, that's why I liked Firefly so much, is this kind of like this old west mixed with sci-fi thing. And I think that's what I think this was going for, like a Firefly-esque feel at
Absolutely.
times.
But a lot of these I think it's a theme that runs throughout these shorts actually is like juxtaposition, like surprising juxtapositions of two elements. Like I mean, just in this next one, you know, you've got Dracula with crusty old mercenary, you know, you pick pretty much anyone and say like, it's these two things mashed together in a fun way.
Yeah. No, so let's move on to that. The next one is Sucker of Souls, which, as Matt said, is mercenaries hired to help archaeologists go into Old Castle and unearth a Dracula vampire, which is very different from the way Dracula is imagined in any other kind of fiction. Yeah. I thought these vampires were cool, but I'm pretty indifferent to this one overall. It did one thing that pissed me off, and I've already told you about this, but I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
It does this thing. So first of all, this is a 13-minute short, right? It's 13 minutes long. And it does an in media res where like it opens with them running away from Dracula, and after like 30 seconds of that, like cuts back to like 10 minutes earlier, and then and goes through it all again. And I'm like, why? Like, your thing's 10 minutes long. Just tell the story. Like, why do you have to do this weird structural stuff? It's not necessary at all.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about this one, honestly. I kind of like the mercenary character. I like the comedy that comes of this crusty mercenary being pitted against the supernatural horror.
Yeah.
And
I liked when the mercenary lady shot Dracula in the dick. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then this is the one that ends with they all die.
Yeah.
They get away. They've done it, and they're in a cave with a bunch of other vampires. And
I mean,
the end.
You could also be like, but the mercenary guy is such a badass. They're probably going to find a way out of this. But I don't mean it's fine. It's fine either way. Really, you're just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
They need more cats.
Yeah. They need more cats.
The power of cats is a continuing theme throughout these stories.
Oh, interesting.
I wonder if we're going to have like a unifying theory about that. Actually, what Love, Death, and Robots is saying is that cats are the best.
I think it is. I think you're right.
The next one is called When the Yogurt Took Over. This is a really, really short, just like high concept, fun joke. I don't have too much to say about it. I think it's funny. Like, it's like, I loved the animation for how the yogurt talked, like in bubble popping to make noise. I thought that was clever, but I don't have much to say about it beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like you said, high concept. Like it's on the surface very silly, and you could almost just completely not pay attention to it and ignore it. But ultimately, though, it is kind of a classic science fiction plot of like we technologically accidentally create something better than us, and then it just transcends way past us really fast, and leaves us behind. So it's like it's that story archetype, but it's done in a silly way, which makes it feel a bit different than usual.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something else. There's if we're looking at continuing trends throughout these stories, I think one of the big trends is kind of the failure of humanity in general, and I think that's one of the big themes of this one, where the yogurt like gives them the solution to all their problems. All they have to do is follow them directly and exactly, and we humanity fail fundamentally to do that because we're not good at that.
Well, I mean, my take was that this is a parable that's really actually about AI, and the yogurt knew that we weren't going to follow the instructions, and basically just created a situation where it knew that it would end up in charge, because that's what a super intelligent thing would do, whether it's a yogurt or an AI. So, I mean, like, it's funny because there's like even while I was watching it, I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. That like there's a surprising amount of depth here, but yeah, it was told in such a silly way that you can't really take it seriously.
Sure. And their spaceships are yogurt cups.
Yes.
It's funny.
Exactly.
All right. The next one after that is Beyond the Aquila Rift. We've already talked about that one. So let's talk about Good Hunting. This is the one I kind of want to spend a little time on with you because I'm very torn about it. So this is the one where in early 20th century China, a kid is being trained by his father on how to hunt shape-shifting demons. And he learns that maybe the demons aren't so bad and befriends one. And then it shifts wildly to be about like a completely different kind of like, it's like old world China. And then like there's this conversation about how new technology is impeding on like old world magic. But then it shifts to like steampunky with like I forget what they're called, but
automata type.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think that's my main problem with it is like aesthetically, like it seemed like it just hopped between those things. And you're like, it seems with the exception of the magic of the demons and like this very real idea of like the colonization of China, and it's commenting on the British control of Shanghai. Is it where is it?
Hong
Did
Kong.
they move to Hong Kong? Thank you, Jesus. And how the oppressive rule and how it kind of sucked all the magic out of the land, and then it just jumps to this other thing, and I don't think that quite worked for me.
Yeah, it didn't feel too connected. It's funny how like conflicted I can be about these like tiny little short stories, because I really do go back and forth on the different elements of it. And like 1 minute I'll be like, oh, this is kind of pandering, and the next I'll be like, no, it's not pandering. That's just the story that it's trying to tell, and there's no way to do that in a way that doesn't feel pandering. And then I'm like, yeah, but it still feels pandering. And then I'm like, okay, well, so. Shouldn't you be able to tell certain kinds of stories, you know, even if they, like it's a fun, this is one, I would say this is one of the least like fun stories, even though it's very imaginative. It goes from magical to steampunk, like very, very visually cool, very imaginative, but like you just kind of feel sick the whole time because it's like a woman gets brutally decapitated, and then there's implied and shown sexual violence, and you're just like, so
yeah. And I think we should say that like the thing she turns into, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'm going to butcher it, but like the nine-tailed fox that she turns into is an actual like Chinese mythological creature, right? So this is like bringing the history of China into the story. And I love the design of the animatronic nine-tailed fox thing. I think that looks really cool. I like that conceptually. I like this idea that the magic is lost, so I can recreate it with technology in this way. I just don't think it comes together in a way, and I don't think it helps that our protagonist is pretty passive. Like it's not his story, right? It's her story, and I wish she was really the focal point of the story, and she's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It had a lot of interesting stuff in it. I think maybe the problem even was that this was like a film's worth of ideas crammed into 17 minutes.
Yeah.
And so none of it really had time to breathe and feel like it landed.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Next up is The Dump. I don't know what to say about this one.
Yeah, honestly, neither do I. I don't think it's trying to be high concept. I think it's just like here's a kind of a like this is a Goosebumps story.
Yeah.
This is not a Twilight Zone story. This is a Goosebumps story. There's a gooey monster that lives in the dump. The piece of shit eviction guy comes by and gets eaten and deserves it. And I think my favorite thing about this one was like the I don't know, the performances and or animation and or like visual design of the main character and his friend as they're like going about their drunken hijinks. I just thought it was like beautifully detailed in its griminess and dirtiness and filthiness.
I agree. I like that. I think he's a great character. Like this, Ugly Dave, I think is his name or something like that. He's a really great character. I like that aspect of it. I really like this, like the one moment that I appreciate the episode did was the lighter, the thing with the lighter, where like just to really sell how much of an asshole this guy is, that he can't get his lighter lit. Guy pulls out his brand new nice lighter, doesn't even offer it to him, and they're like, oh yeah, you deserve to be eaten by a trash monster.
Right. Yep.
Cool. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
Definitely fun. All right, next up is Shape Shifters. This is the one about the werewolves that are used in the Marines, which is, I think, a really cool concept. This concept of like how the military would employ the use of like fantasy creatures and that kind of thing.
Sure. It's fun in terms of just the imaginativeness of like, oh, what would that be like? And then also a kind of a commentary on like the military is going to find a way to put everyone to use, even if it's weird and doesn't really fit in, and the other soldiers reject them. And
I think that's actually where this one breaks down to me because like the movie Zootopia, here's the problem with racism metaphors. When the thing that you're using as a racism metaphor is literally a man that can turn into a creature that can eat people, I think your metaphor breaks down a little bit. Like the whole point of racism is supposed to be, we are exactly the same. We are exactly the same. It's just a pigmentation of the skin. We should be treated exactly the same. But these guys are pretty brutal. And like I talk about Zootopia because Zootopia used the carnivore herbivore thing as a difference. But like the problem was the carnivores actually like eat things.
Right. But you can conveniently never see them eat anything.
Right. Well, and I think that's the problem. Like, I appreciate the metaphor they're trying to go for here. I like it. I like that these are super effective, good soldiers. Like, he takes out the enemy werewolves like in this badass action that I actually enjoyed the action. I thought it was pretty good. But I just don't think the metaphor works. It leaves you going like,
Yeah. But honestly, the stuff that didn't quite work was such a small amount of the episode. Like,
sure,
you could still buy that him and his friend were, like, even if they hadn't been explicitly prejudiced against, you could still buy that they felt isolated and like no one else really understood them and what it was like to be them. And so that they had this special, unique bond. And then when his friend dies, he's kind of devastated by it and doesn't feel like he belongs with anyone else. Like the story still works even without that element of the other soldiers just being egregious dicks to them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So ultimately, I don't think that like breaks anything. But yeah, it just seems, if anything, seems like an elephant that didn't need to be there.
Sure. I like werewolf stories. I like them a lot. I usually will like a good werewolf story. I think it's cool. One of my favorite things about werewolf stories is seeing how they handle the transformation, and I thought it was very cool here. I like the visceralness of literally ripping the human parts off of you, like they're in your way once you start transforming. Like when he transforms, it's like his face is preventing the muzzle from coming out, and he has to like rip his face off.
Yeah.
Like, I really liked that. I thought that was great.
And the fighting was like you said, really just viscerally kind of upsetting in a good way. Like he kills the kid by like ripping his throat out. He really kind of horrifyingly bites through the old man's skull. You're just like,
he like shoves his whole snout into his mouth and bites down on the skull. Yeah, it's definitely a Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And I like the fake out, right? Like the way it telegraphed that our protagonist was just pretending to lie down dead. Because there's this moment where the older werewolf like sees his younger son or grandson or what have you like rush towards his obviously defeated foe, and he like tries to reach out to stop him, and he's just like a second too late, and of course it's a fake out, and it's like this little, like, it's telling a little story within the combat there that like, this is the young one, he's inexperienced, here's the elder, he is much more experienced, he's been doing this a lot longer, and I like when your action is not just mindless like swiping the shit out of each other. They build a narrative into the fight itself. Yeah,
well said. There's storytelling happening. It's not just like, and then there was a big fight. I think the same thing happens in Sunny's Edge, where the fight is changing and shifting back and forth as new interesting wrinkles are being introduced. It's not just like bash, bash, bash. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
I agree with that for sure. Yeah. So not the best one, but yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
Next we have Helping Hand, which is a fun one. This is the one where a mechanic is repairing a satellite in space and gets stuck out there and has to chop her hand off to use it to get momentum. That's scientifically accurate, right? Like you
Sure.
would need to push something in the one direction to give yourself momentum in the opposite direction.
Sure. And
right.
And like if you can throw something really hard, then you can offset the momentum of your whole body. Like that's because it's conservation of momentum, which is mass times velocity. So you just give that thing a really high velocity. Makes perfect sense. I'm an idiot, so I was mentally derailed by like, would your arm freeze like that? And I don't even know if the answer is yes or no. I was just distracted by that.
Sure. I mean, I will admit that on my second time through, that's what I was thinking. I was like, would it freeze sufficiently enough that you would be able to snap it off just by smashing it on your knee?
You could probably, because I was thinking like you could definitely break your own arm with like with leverage. The question is the flesh all the way through going to be frozen?
Right.
And I think the answer is no, but I don't really care that much.
There's only one way to find out.
Yeah. No. All right.
Go out in space.
Okay.
But I mean, conceptually, like
Yeah.
I like these, like, I think it's fun to watch person alone does whatever they need to do to survive stories.
Yeah.
Like this is basically 127 hours in space, right?
Yeah.
Which is the James Franco has to chop his own arm off because he's stuck in a rock thing.
Yeah. Except it's 10 minutes, which is much more tolerable to watch.
Yes, absolutely. I just like these, like seeing how far a person would be willing to go to ensure their own survival in these situations where, yes, I mean, logically, dead with two hands is worse than alive with one hand, but the fortitude it would take to bring a person to be able to do that to themselves is impressive, and I enjoy seeing stories like that.
I thought it was well set up too, how like everything on her ship is terrible and shitty, and so it's not really a surprise when her suit is damaged and there's no functioning backup ability. So like she's gonna have to do something drastic to get out of this.
Yeah, and the first line is like, another one of these solo missions where it's the episode is almost acknowledging the fact that it's kind of ridiculous that a person would be sent by themselves to do this thing. Like it's just like that if anything goes wrong, the closest person away is an hour, which is just insane. Like it's kind of it's taking the concept of space in which like when our people go to space, like we're so careful and so like safety obsessed. And I think it's kind of normalizing space in a future in which like we've been doing this so often.
Sure.
It's just kind of lost a little bit of we've kind of slacked off a little bit to save money.
I think you're right.
And this is what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. We already talked about Fish Night.
Yeah, we already talked about Fish Night, Lucky 13, and Zima Blue. So let's talk about Blind Spot.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about this one. This is one I totally forgot about.
I'm going to be honest. This one fell near the bottom of my ranking. Other than being kind of visually cool, it's just kind of a big like cartoon.
Yeah, it's like Fast and the Furious with robots, except we haven't had time to fall in love with the family.
Yeah. And then they all die really, really quickly, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Bummer. And then that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not even bummer. It's like, okay,
yeah.
Oh, okay, so one of them lived. Good. Oh, they're all alive. Oh, okay,
yeah.
Cool.
They got to get the microchip. It's a MacGuffin in the purest meaning of that word.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, did they just kill like 80 people?
I think all those men those were real humans, right? I don't know. Yeah, I think they're all dead. I don't know.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally forgot, and it's short. It's very short, so I think it's forgivable. I will say I like the robot designs, especially the kind of the one guy with the mohawk and the cigar in his mouth and like the razor teeth. Like I thought that was a cool design.
Yeah, you know what's weird is like just because I say it's near the bottom of my like preference, I wouldn't say like I wish this one wasn't in the anthology. It's more like I think I like that there's such a variety. I actually there's such a variety because like you're gonna have some misses when you take that many swings, and that's fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Sure. All right, next up we have Ice Age, the only live action story in this whole thing, sort of. I guess it counts because the world in the freezer is animated.
I don't know.
The basic story of this is that Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Topher Grace have moved into a new apartment, and they find a civilization in their icebox that advances really fastly, and then achieves a singularity and disappears, and then comes back.
It starts over.
I don't know. Like, do you have anything to say about this? I really there's nothing. I have nothing insightful to say about it other than I thought it's a clever concept that I think has been done. I think like every sci-fi anthology has a story like this in it, honestly.
I think like the fun part of it for me was their blasé reactions to it. Like
they just, it was so normalized in their lives.
Yeah.
Like
Topher Grace is like, this is pretty cool. this is kind of neat.
Yeah.
And Mary Elizabeth Winstead is just already over it immediately. And it's like I'm not sure exactly what we're saying with that, but I thought that was kind of a fun, because like instead of the story being like, how would you react to this? It's like they're not reacting realistically at all. They're just kind of like, well, I guess we'll see what happens in the morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun.
My favorite part in the world, though, is when Topher Grace gets an ice cube for his red wine. Which, what the fuck is that about, Topher? I appreciate that Mary Elizabeth Winstead calls him out on it. It's one of those moments where like you need an excuse for them to go to the freezer, right? Like you need that to happen. And so you're like, how can we make this happen? And then someone in the writer's room probably is like, we'll have them get some ice for the wine. And you're like, yeah, maybe you can get water or something. Or we can turn it into a funny joke. And that's and a character defining joke where Mary Elizabeth Winstead like digs him for it. It's like, you know what I like the most about you? Your class. It's just like this perfect little dig there, which is great characterization. Quick characterization. True. I like it.
I like that. I bet it went down exactly the way you just said.
Yeah. All right. Our penultimate episode is one that you mentioned before called Alternate Histories, which is really just a series of vignettes about different ways in which Hitler's death would have affected the future. Again, not too much to say about this.
Not too much to say. There was weird, like large amounts of nudity of unrealistic looking cartoons in ways that was, I was just like, that's so ridiculous.
I mean, Hitler's gotta bang those prostitutes, right?
Those Viennese prostitutes, which were, okay, fine.
I mean,
no problem.
I would say that it was rather inventive in its ways to come up with killing Hitler. Like I thought the Jello weapon was pretty hilarious.
See, the whole time this isn't really an objection because I recognize that they were being silly, but I was just like, that's like, if you say that he was killed by a Jello weapon, that means that the timeline diverged well before this moment, because that's not how timeline divergence works.
Hilariously, watching this episode today, I said, Matt's not going to like this because it doesn't really make sense.
That's not what my problem was, but I definitely was like, that's not what that means.
Right. I mean, I think the things that I like the most are the first two examples, right? Where like the first example, he gets beat up and things basically happen the same way, except it's just slightly delayed. The second example, he gets run over by a horse-drawn carriage, and that like Austrians get cars earlier, and getting cars earlier means they kick ass in World War I. I like those are the two most like. I appreciate that they went for the joke here, but I think I would have liked the joke better if it tried to at least like play what if with it in interesting ways, instead of after the first two going immediately towards the so silly that it's just kind of meaningless from here on.
I like the structure of it. I liked how like they every time it was like the first person on the moon changed.
I liked that too. With the Squid Man in the year 2 million, whatever. Yeah.
Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I think this was one that was definitely like, 7 minutes, exactly the right length.
Yep. Any more, I would have not been happy.
Yeah. but that's fine. See, that's what I mean. Like, oh, it's only 7 minutes. Fine. I'm fine with it being. I like it even because it's short and concise, and then the joke is over and it's fine. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
So the final episode is The Secret War. This is about a Russian army that is hunting down demons. What'd you think of this one?
I enjoyed it. It's one of the ones that's the most like off brand for the whole show.
There's no robots in it.
There's no robots. There's like, I mean, it does match what we mentioned before about there being just like, okay, Red Army plus occult demons, like juxtaposing weird elements in a way that causes an interesting outcome. Like I really like the character stuff. I like the kind of like taciturn leader, but who clearly has a lot going on, and he's doing his best. And then you learn by the end, like the kid who's there is actually his son. And then I like his lieutenants who are just like these great characters who are all like just kind of the prototypical like great soldier, dutiful soldier characters, and the drama of the thing as it unfolds, and they can't go help the other team because like it's just really good. It's a good little short story. It
is.
I enjoyed it a lot, actually. In fact, the more I'm thinking about it, it was on my list of like my top 7 or 8. The more I'm thinking about it, the higher I would put it on the list, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's doing anything special and unique, but I think what it's doing, it does very well. I think, like we said, it's beautifully animated. I think this is one of the few episodes that was nominated for an Emmy, and I think it got sound editing because it's like it constructs like a battlefield. Mm-hmm. Like this is really good, like really good special effects and sound work. So I agree with that nomination. But yeah, I mean, I didn't remember. I was surprised that like this is the one they finish on. Like we talked about at the beginning that like you want to end on a bang. Mm-hmm. And this is, I mean, well done animation, well crafted, well executed, but it's just nothing like there's nothing. When I think of Love, Death, and Robots, I do not think of this episode. This is like a cool short that part of me is like, hey, I wonder what a feature length film exploring this idea would look like.
Yeah.
And that's really it. Like it's not like this is quintessential this anthology series.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree that it's almost an idea that I wish had been longer, because like think of the way it ends where the platoon gets wiped out. His son manages to escape, and then we just kind of like skip forward in time and we see that his son successfully got, a bombing run ordered, and now the bombs are dropping, and you're like, oh, okay, well.
And then it kind of fades out as the bombs are dropping, but it's like there's no indication that, okay, we've won now. In fact, in my opinion, like the sheer number of these things has kind of confirmed that we're not going to win.
Yeah, maybe, right.
So that I mean, I think it's supposed to kind of be this hopeful ending, but I don't buy it. Like, we bombed we had a great bombing run of these things. Like, is it over now? Is it like, I don't think so. They're like demons from hell.
Yeah, right. It's not like we really understand where they came from. Like their goal was like, oh, we're just going to blow up this cave entrance and then the problem will be solved. And then the whole like earth falls away beneath them and there's thousands of them. So like for all we know, that's just going to happen again after the bombing. Yeah, you're right.
Right. And the way they did the cave entrance bombing certainly made it seem like this is not the first like bug hole they've plugged up. Right. So like even if they kill all the ones here, there's no indication that they're all dead.
Right. I'm not saying it's pointless for us to be, nitpicking on this level, but like it kind of feels like nitpicking a so-called writer's story where you're just like, yeah, but it is what it is. Like you can't do all this stuff in a 16-minute short. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, yes, that's true. And while I'm watching them, I'm more focusing on the emotions of what I'm feeling at the time, and I'm not really thinking these critical thoughts while I'm watching it. Actually,
yeah. I think you're right. So now that we've kind of gotten to the end, I mean, would you describe these things as, because one of the critiques I read called this like hyper masculine, and I mean I like sex, violence, like boobs, whole lots of boobs. I'm inclined to agree with that, but I think that's too simplified.
It definitely feels simplified. I mean, several of these are not at all gendered. How is the dump hypermasculine? How is Fish Knight hypermasculine? Other than these all having male characters.
Because the dump dog is man's best friend.
How is when Matt. The yogurt took over hypermasculine? I mean, I get it. Like, I get that a lot of them have guns and shooting, but like, I even kind of resent that because like my daughter loves Marvel movies. Those have a lot of like big muscle dudes punching each other. Like,
I do find it interesting what we call like. Doesn't it tie into a problem when we're like labeling these things as masculine? When it's like, aren't we like just helping perpetuate gender stereotypes?
Yes, we are. I don't like it. I think it's I think it's borderline meaningless to say these are like what does it mean to say that, and what is your point?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah. I'm just reading here as we wrap up that Netflix released these in 4 random episode orders, so that's why that happened.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that. There's probably some algorithm that told them to do that, or they're just testing. They're just testing to see if the order changes things. Sneaky Netflix.
They're testing to see like which people they showed the different orders to would then go on to lead different lives.
Yeah.
So you and I saw different episode ordering, so it'll be interesting to compare our, life experiences from this point on.
Interesting. Anyway, so that is Love, Death, and Robots. Enjoyable experience overall. I liked, I enjoyed this show the first time I watched it, but I really have come to appreciate a lot of these episodes more getting to talk to them with you. So we appreciate our patron, Zachary, for making us go through them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad that I watched this. I had no idea what I was getting into, by the way. I thought it was like a show. I literally started watching it without realizing it was an anthology. So when the second episode rolled around and had a completely different visual aesthetic and everything, I was like, what?
Yeah. One of the things Matt did on I think it was Sunday, was like, Scott, there are 18 of these things. Do you have to watch them all? And I was like, don't worry, Matt. They're short. They're really short.
Yeah. And then like very quickly, like I think the next thing I texted you was like, oh, these are awesome.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
all right. So that is Love, Death, and Robots. Season 2 is coming, I believe. So that's good. That's positive. More shorts. People should watch more shorts.
Yeah.
Doof. All right, Matt. Let's talk about Comic-Con. Okay. Let's talk about some news. The first thing I want to talk about has nothing to do with Comic-Con, but it came out last week and I wanted to talk about it. It's the Cats trailer. I don't have anything insightful to say here other than, have you seen this? Did you see it?
Did you see this? You heard about this? My hot take was that the rendition of Memory was just kind of forgettable.
Yeah, it's like the only... Okay, I'm not going to say that because some Cats super fans are going to get mad at me, but the best song in the musical, I'm not going to say the only good song, even though it is the only good song in the musical. The best song in the musical, their version of it didn't really grip me. No. And maybe it's because I was seeing like horrible monsters on screen while listening to it. But
I literally noticed how unimpressive the song was as a distraction from the horrible monsters on the screen. So that's why that's my hot take.
One positive thing, this is choreographed by the guy who did Hamilton, which is a very good musical, very well choreographed musical. So even if we're watching Abominations, they're going to dance well. So that's good.
I'm sure someone will find that to be a relief.
I just can't believe they spent $100 million to do a thing that looks like considerably worse than just putting makeup and a wig on people. Like,
yeah,
it's a choice for sure.
Maybe they didn't finish the CGI yet. I don't think that's
true. That's the thing about it. Well, that's the thing about all this though, is it's not done. Like, it is definitely not done. Like, the CG is one of the things that takes the longest to do. It has to start the earliest and usually finishes near the very end. But the nature of marketing requires you to show these trailers. Sure. And so is it gonna be like like 100% better to where it's going to be like, oh, actually we were wrong. This is perfect now. No, but it is definitely not done yet either.
Did you notice in Spider-Man Far From Home, he's wearing a completely different Spider-Man costume in the trailer versus in that scene in the movie?
No, I did not, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, this is the minorest of spoilers, but in the trailer he's wearing what looks like a typical Spider-Man suit. In the actual movie, he's wearing the Iron Spider suit in that scene. It's like dramatically different. Anyway.
That's what Marvel does. They edit stuff like that all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. So our only other bit of non-Marvel news is the Picard movie got a trailer. We've been tracking this thing since it was announced, so I feel like we have to keep coming back to it. What did you think of Picard?
I mean, unfortunately, I listened to the Red Letter Media group talk about it, so they poisoned me with their cynicism. But like, I think I already would be kind of cynical because it just doesn't feel very TNG or doesn't feel like Picard. It doesn't feel like I'm watching the character of Picard, or if it feels like I'm watching movie Picard. It doesn't feel like I'm watching very reserved and an internal Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the TV show. And then also there's this element of like, she is the chosen one, which is just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I don't like that. She's going to be some kind of like Borg human hybrid.
Something.
I guess.
Yeah.
Which isn't a Borg already a human hybrid? I don't know. She's going to do some Borg thing. Because they showed a Borg cube. And you can't do a show about Picard without doing Borg stuff, right? You kind of have to.
Yeah.
I agree with you. However, seeing Jean-Luc Picard talking with Data and seeing Jean-Luc Picard stand on the bridge of a ship and say engage fucked me up, man. I'm in.
Okay.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care that the setup of the storyline seems over actiony and kind of hokey, and you're absolutely right. Movie Picard. Absolutely. Don't care. It's Jean-Luc Picard. He's on my screen. I am in.
I wish I could say that I was in. I will be in if people say that it's good.
It's good, Matt.
I will not be in if it is what it looks like it's going to be. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. All right. The last bit of news, and it's not a bit of news, it's a lot of news, because the most surprising thing to happen at Comic-Con this year was Marvel showed up, and here's why I like this, Matt, because they basically unveiled their entire Phase 4 plan. And this is a Marvel that's coming off of Avengers Endgame, literally last weekend, overtaking Avatar to be the biggest film in the world ever. So they really could have rolled into Comic-Con and just like patted themselves on the back.
Victory
like,
lap.
Just like brought out Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and just went like, hey, look at these guys.
Right.
Love them. But instead, they were all about the future. They were all about what's happening next. They were all about, it's like, look, yeah, we're not resting on our laurels. We just did this thing, and now we're doing all this other stuff. And the other stuff is pretty damn cool, Matt. So they announced their Phase 4 thing, and the interesting thing, there's this picture that like a map of the future. Phase 4 goes through 2021. There are 5 movies on it, and the rest are Disney Plus TV shows. So we have The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Loki, Hawkeye, and What If are our television shows that are going to be on Disney Plus. And then our movies are the Black Widow movie, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, in the Multiverse of Madness, which is a great freaking title, and Thor, Love and Thunder. So those are the big announcements of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, out of those, I'm most interested. I guess like Black Widow sounds fun because I don't know. I think that character's cool. I think they're going to do something fun with it. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness apparently is going to be like a horror movie. It's going for like the title is a Lovecraft reference basically.
Yeah.
And then what I've heard about Thor, I can't help but be excited.
Yeah. It's really exciting. Taika Waititi's back. Natalie Portman is going to be playing Mighty Thor, which is a woman version of the character. And I'm really excited about that movie. But that's like the last one in the phase, right? That's November 5th, 2021.
Yeah.
And this, to me, this is all really exciting because Shang-Chi is a property I know nothing about. Absolutely nothing about. But they're setting this up as a core of their Phase 4 plans. Eternals is a series that I really don't know anything about, but this is like a super diverse, super fascinating cast of characters. Let me just read to you some of the people that are in this movie: Kumail Nanjiani, Brian Tyree Henry, Salma Hayek, Chloe Zhao, Richard Madden, Angelina Jolie. Like, it's a stacked cast.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really fascinating. And then you have, the Black Widow movie, like you said, Doctor Strange, who knows? Like, it's really interesting because, like, here's the things I expected to see on this list that aren't. There's no Black Panther 2 on here. There's no Captain Marvel 2 on here. And yeah, we're getting those movies. We're absolutely going to get those movies, but not yet.
Yeah.
Like, I think what's happening here is Marvel is so confident, and that confidence is allowing them to just do what they want to do.
Right.
And I mean, like a Shang-Chi movie, like probably 5 years ago would be seen like a crazy risk.
Yeah.
This is it's gonna be the first Asian superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like leading superhero. Sorry, leading role. I think it's directed by a Chinese American director. They're going for diversity here across the board. Like, every single one of these things is they're prioritizing diversity. They're making up for past mistakes, if you want to call it that. And I saw some things online, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I saw some things online that's like, oh, well, they're just going after diversity because they've learned that diversity makes money. And like, that's true. But like, isn't that what we want? Like, in the society in which we live in, if you want diversity in art, isn't convincing one of the biggest companies in the world that it's financially beneficial for you to do that like a win condition?
Yeah. I'm confused as to why someone would even say that remark. Like, isn't it, if you're the kind of person who would say that in the first place, wouldn't it be worse if they were doing it despite the fact that it makes money? Like, I don't know. I have trouble getting inside people's headspace sometimes. I just think
there's, like, Disney's this giant corporation, like, consuming the entire industry, and people don't like that, and that's fine. I tend to agree with that in some respects, but I think there's, like, we want to be pessimistic and kind of negative about like very transparent attempts at diversity, right? Like, but I just feel like, to use a phrase from this universe, that's the end game, right? The end game is companies feel like they have to stay profitable, successful companies. They have to be diverse. Like, that's good. That's good. Congratulations. You've finally learned.
Also, like, none of it really feels forced to me. Like, we've got, I mean, everyone always brings up the fact that the first Marvel movie was Blade, which...
Oh yeah, that's the thing we didn't even talk about. There's gonna be a freaking Blade movie.
Yeah, so like we're
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, so like good job. We're as diverse as we were in the 90s. What progress? Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being tongue in cheek. We have Blade and we have Black Panther sequel, and we have Guardians of the Galaxy, which has a diverse cast, and
Shang-Chi, and Natalie Portman,
et cetera,
and Thor, and a Black Widow movie, and I mean, like, it's a fantastic Eternals. It's a fantastic time. I'm very happy with what they're doing. I'm very happy that, like, there is no Avengers-esque movie in this lineup right now. Like, there's no big team up movie, and to me that signifies we're doing something different here. And I want them to do something different. Like, the Infinity Saga is over. You did that thing. Let's try something new. Let's do something different.
And I would say, like, naively, Phase 4 is Phase 1 of the second mega phase.
Yeah. I think that's
Phase 1
right.
didn't have any big team up movies either.
Well, it had.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't. You're right.
The Avengers.
It ended with the Avengers, but
it had the OG team up movie.
But that was the last one in that sequence, and I think it would be just, fine if they did have a team up movie, but they held off on it until sometime in Phase 2. Like, I have no problem with team up movies, but I do like the way they do this, where they give you a chance to fall in love with the characters in their individual movies first.
Yeah. Other things they said, but have not said anything officially about. There will be a Fantastic Four movie in the future. They are working on that. Nothing really about the X-Men. I think Kevin Feige specifically said, I don't want to talk about mutants. So I think they're letting the X-Men cool off a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's kind of tainted.
I feel like the X-Men doesn't really fit into the MCU as it has been created, and that's fine.
Yeah. They will have to do something with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not doing anything of that. But yeah, I mean, I think it is surprising to me. I really did expect to see a Black Panther movie on this list.
Yeah.
I mean, that means they're going to wait like 4 years between Black Panther sequels.
Yeah. There's and also Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name, but the actor is going to be like, 30 before he plays
Tom Holland. Yeah.
Tom Holland's going to be like 30 before he plays teenager Peter Parker again, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like the Sony deal has one more movie in it because I feel like that's true. And I feel like 2021 would be when that movie comes out, right? Because didn't Homecoming come out in 2017? They seem to do like every other year. So yeah, maybe they're just not including it on their list because it's like Sony's deal, so it's not going to be on their Phase 4 list or whatever, but it still should be a Marvel, like it's still part of the deal.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, what I've read is that it is planned. It's planned,
Yeah.
So
yeah, everything's planned. Yeah, no Guardians of the Galaxy 3 on this list.
Yeah.
But I think that's just because of the delay, because they fired James Gunn for no reason and then had to rehire him, and then he was like, "Well, I already said I'm doing this Suicide Squad movie, so you'll have to wait."
Yeah.
So they're going to do that.
Good job, Disney executive man who's probably fired now.
Yeah, so that I think it's exciting. I don't know. I'm actually, we didn't talk much about the television stuff. It's mostly like they are considering this part of Phase 4. Like it's on this big board, this big list they put up there, but it is stuff like it seems to be that is like, here's where you go see all the old characters you like, right? Like Loki is a fan favorite character. Like the Vision's dead, so here's like, there's a dead character. Loki's dead, quote unquote. Hawkeye is, I guess, it's a way to tell these stories that aren't as on the big screen, that are maybe smaller stories. But are people clamoring for a Hawkeye movie? I don't know. But I think it's an interesting thing, and I wonder how connected they'll be, because like one thing that people said about the Netflix Marvel stuff was that even though it was technically set in the same universe, it really was just like one-off references, right? And now that Marvel TV and Marvel film has kind of like the divide between them is gone, are we actually going to see this stuff tie in more?
Yeah.
Are we like 5 years away from like Disney just not releasing a movie in theaters anymore and just putting it on their own streaming service and saying, sorry, film industry, you fucked?
I would doubt it, but the world is changing.
It's true.
I'm interested to see how the streaming service feeds into all this. I agree that is an interesting question.
Yeah.
I just want to say for the record how funny I think it is that like you and I think like 2 or 3 years ago we're on this show basically saying like, oh yeah, superhero fatigue. I don't know why they keep making these movies. I'm so bored of them. And like now, I if anything, I was the more pessimistic and bored of this shit of the two of us. And now I'm like, I can't wait for this next tranche of films. This is going to be so fun. I love Marvel, and I'm just like they have completely won me over, and I'm delighted by it.
I think one of the things we're going to look back on is at Guardians of the Galaxy as this real pivot point, right? Where this is a crazy movie about characters we've never heard of that really let Marvel get weird. And the fact that it was successful basically gave them the confidence to just start doing weird shit. And that's continuing in this next phase. It seems like they're just going to keep doing more weird shit. Different, like stuff that no one would have ever called safe 5 years ago, but now seems like, of course they'll do it that. Like think about it. There is not going to be another MCU film until May of next year. It's a long, that's almost a year.
Yeah.
We haven't had that in a while. Yeah. And it's going to be a Black Widow movie, which I like the character of Black Widow. I'm going to go see that movie and I'll probably enjoy it, but it's not advancing the plot of the MCU, right? It's going to be a movie that takes place after Civil War. So it's just like that. That's surprising and different, and I think shows a confidence. Like we got this.
Yeah,
we got this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I see it as a good sign, I guess, is what I'm saying. I agree with you there.
Yeah. All right. So that's the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
We will be back to talk about that until we're like dead. Until we're dead.
Right. Yeah. The last thing I was going to say is that like Guardians of the Galaxy is more Star Wars than Star Wars is now. That's my feeling anyway.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think you're right. Yeah. All right, guys, that is all we had for this week. If you have any opinions on any of the Love, Death, and Robots episodes or the series as a whole or any of the San Diego Comic-Con news that we discussed, please reach out to us. You can reach us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find all the shows we do over at our website, doofmedia.com. That includes our book club, Matt, which is meeting tomorrow, the 26th at 9:30 p.m. So if you're listening to this the day it comes out, it's tonight. We're talking about Leviathan Wakes, the Expanse book. We talked about that television show about a month ago, and now we're talking about the book. So come hang out with us on YouTube Live and talk about Leviathan Wakes.
Yep, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And if you want to support us, or if you want to pick a show for us, or pick a topic for us to do a show on, or pick a book for us to do a show on, or just get your voice heard in which books we do, become a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. This episode only exists thanks to the generosity of our patron, Zachary S., which once again, we will thank Zachary both for his continued support of what we do, but also for forcing us to watch this wonderful little anthology show.
Yeah, it was delightful. I'm so glad that I watched this. I had no idea this existed. I never would have watched it if not for you, Zachary. So thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, guys, we will see you all next week. I can't remember what the show topic is. I think maybe we're talking about Quentin Tarantino's new movie, but I'm not sure. But that'll be next week.
All right.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.